Welcome to Married to History, where we try to be informative, entertaining, and family friendly.
Aloha, I'm Christopher. I have a fancy piece of paper on my wall that says that I know more about history than most people do.
I'm Shirley. I'm a homeschool mom that relies on good curriculum, Christopher, and Fiddler on the Roof to teach our kids history.
You're on the roof. Okay, well, no, okay, that's a
That's
good
a good
one.
one.
That's a good one, yeah, enjoyed it. Saw a friend of mine perform in that. Best heavy I've ever seen.
He was amazing.
He was a lovely, yes. Am I allowed to say his name, or is no? That's a bad.
You can say his first name.
I can say his first name.
You should get his permission before saying his last name.
That's a good point. All right, so we'll hold off on that for now. Hopefully, one day I'll recommend him to people.
He's amazing.
He is amazing. Again, best heavy I ever saw.
Hey, honey, I have a history question for you.
I love history questions. Give it to me.
Okay, so this is actually going to be our first listener requested episode.
Ooh.
After our Great Depression
People
episode.
are listening to us?
Yeah, like 10, if we're lucky.
Cool.
It's great. So after our Great Depression episode, our friend Rebecca suggested that we talk about the Dust Bowl. So, honey, what is the Dust Bowl? Were these like bowls of dust that people ate because they were just so poor that they couldn't afford food during the Great Depression?
No, these were not bowls of dust that people ate during the Depression. All right. The Dust Bowl refers to a wide region, so not a physical bowl, but a wide region that encompassed parts of several states. I don't remember them all off the top of my head. Oklahoma, Arkansas, perhaps Kansas also. But Oklahoma and Arkansas are the big ones I can think of. Yeah, the plains area, or I don't even know if those are considered the plains areas, but just that general area around where Oklahoma and Arkansas are.
Okay.
So it took place in several parts of those in the surrounding states as well.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what happened was this. So this occurred during the Great Depression.
Okay.
Some people mistakenly believe this is one of the causes of the Great Depression.
But it wasn't?
No. So the Dust Bowl, the earliest date that we trace the Dust Bowl back to, now granted we can trace the signs of things that were going wrong.
Right, it wasn't just like all of a sudden overnight, this thing happens.
Yeah, when it actually became a problem, so there were 3 waves of it.
Okay.
And the first wave doesn't occur until, I want to say 34. So that's almost 5 years, technically 4 years after the stock market crash, after the Depression has already begun.
Okay.
But the fact that it happened during the Great Depression, of course, didn't make the 1930s any better for an awful lot of people.
Bad times.
Basically, there were a combination of things, but the one that I believe is the most commonly cited for this is bad farming practices or bad, irresponsible farming practices. People weren't...
That's awfully mean of you to call all of those poor, struggling farmers bad.
People that are trying to do something can do it badly. It happens.
Okay.
I tried to be a dad once. I did it badly. I tried to be a husband for the last 18 years. I think I've done it badly.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, thank you. So yes, people can do things badly. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that they made bad choices, did bad things, did non-productive things, whatever nice word you want to use.
Just
to
like
describe
those bankers did their job badly.
Yes, that would be an example. They did their job badly.
So if I do something badly, it could contribute to the downfall of my economy?
Yes. Yes, it can.
I mean, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
But the
You
world
thought you
economy...
were going to get me on that, didn't you?
I shouldn't have said I should have said the world economy.
Yeah.
It just takes a handful of people
Still can.
to bring down the entire... That's actually scary.
It can. So I don't... Well, we obviously haven't talked about this on the podcast before, but Gabriele Princip is an excellent... Gabriele Princip. He's an excellent example of one man who can change the history of the world, I think.
Never heard of him. Does he have to do with this topic?
No.
Then I'm going to write his name down for later.
All right. So we're talking about the Dust Bowl. Okay. So, to my knowledge, there were already bad weather practices. There was already a drought going on, but the key factor for the Dust Bowl was soil erosion. The farmers in the area weren't taking good enough care of the soil. Now, I'm not a farmer, so I'm probably going to get some of the...
You're not?
No, I hate the outdoors.
You really do.
I really do hate the outdoors. I don't even like going outside to do yard work of any kind.
You dug up some weeds the other day.
Yeah, because I hate weeds. And because I was bored, I needed something to do.
Anyway, soil erosion.
So soil erosion. So they were not planting crops that were good for the soil. All the crops that were being planted were draining all the resources, all the nutrients out of the soil, and they weren't leaving enough material, waste, byproducts, whatever you want to call it, in the soil so that the soil stayed like soil that we see. So kids in their kindergarten classes, when they're planting those lima beans or whatever it
Yeah.
was, they're working with soil. It's kind of a thick, kind of
Black
mushy, black
and- yeah.
dirt material, whatever it is that they're using. But in the case of the Dust Bowl, the overusage of the farming and the crops that they were doing turned the soil basically into dust or sand. And so what that meant was that first off, new crops weren't taking to the land, so they weren't able to plant, and anything that they did try to plant were dying because they weren't getting the nutrients they needed.
Dang.
That means lower food supplies, which is going to affect Great Depression a little bit more because food is something that people need. But it also meant that this is going to turn the area into very similar to a desert, and so now
I hate
that
deserts.
sand is going to spread. Whenever the winds come in or whatnot, the sands are going to spread, and that sand is going to lay over any good soil that might still remain, and it's going to kill whatever good soil might still remain also. And so
Yeah.
this creates what they call the Dust Bowl because of the clouds of dust, the dust storms that would just be covering the area.
Dang.
And we have photographs of that too. We have farmhouses that are just buried in mounds of sand because of all the sandstorms basically that were created in the area.
I don't like sand.
So this led to a lot of people in that area. For those who are in California, you learned about this in your California history, or you will. This led to a lot of people immigrating to California because at this point in history, California was still, that's where you go. The whole mentality of the streets were paved with gold in California.
but
You
they
can just walk
are.
around and pick up gold off the ground if you go to California. Jobs are there. Everything's fine and cheap and beautiful there. So yeah, an awful lot of these people packed up their farms or whatever they had
Yeah.
left, and they head over to California.
Hold on.
Steinbeck writes at least one book.
Okay.
I think he wrote two, maybe even more books about
Well, Grapes of
these
Wrath,
people.
right?
Yeah, Grapes of Wrath is one of them. About these people from Oklahoma, from Arkansas, and from the other areas around about that came to California. They're famous. If you want to look them up or do some more research, you might even encounter people referring to them from time to time as Okies and Arkies and
Oh, that's where the word Okie came from.
yeah, and whatever other areas.
Oh.
Okies and Arkies. This is why I know it's Oklahoma
Yeah.
and Arkansas. Those are the only ones I remember off the top of my head. Yeah, that was the way that they referred to people
Yeah.
from Oklahoma or Arkansas that were coming over to California
Yeah.
from the Dust Bowl. At least to my knowledge, it was used during the time of the Dust Bowl period.
Yeah.
For all I know, they were calling people Okies and Arkies and Californies and
That
Texies
doesn't
and whatnot
sound right.
beforehand. But the only time that I'm familiar with the terms was during the Dust Bowl.
Okay, hold on a second. I wanted to make a tiny little point. So when I was looking for pictures for our Great Depression episode, I found pictures of like migrant workers, coming to like California during the Dust Bowl. And one of them I found so amusing because it was like a family in Blythe, California, which we know is the middle of the desert. Not a great place to live, if you ask me. But that was the caption that the family moved there. So you're telling me they escaped a desert to a desert.
A desert which had better farmland, because despite how much you did not like living in Blythe, there's farmland there.
They do farm there, yes.
The fact that it's so close to a river helps.
That is true. That is true. I just thought it
You've
was
heard of
personally
Egypt, right?
entertaining. No, I've never heard of Egypt.
Egypt is this country that's in a desert. It's a
Is
very
it?
famous desert called the Sahara.
Really?
It's in a continent that you may or may not have heard of called
What?
Africa.
Never heard of it.
And despite the fact that it's a largely desert country,
Yeah.
along the river is some of the best farmland that mankind has ever known to exist.
Is that the American River?
The river is called the Nile,
The
and like I
Mississippi
said,
River.
it's in Egypt, which is in what continent now?
Asia.
Try again.
North America.
Try again.
I don't know any other continents.
You are not endearing yourself to any fans you might have on this podcast.
I have no
Is
fans.
this a podcast? Is that what this is called?
It's a podcast.
Podcast. Okay. Why is it called a podcast? I mean,
I don't know.
we're
That
not
doesn't
like
matter.
in a pod.
Back to these
We're not
farmers.
casting spells.
We are.
We are casting spells?
Yes.
What kind of spells?
I can't tell you.
That's
Anyways.
mean.
Okay, so I really want to learn about these farmers that are moving from a desert to a desert.
Okay.
But I know they didn't all go to the desert.
Yes, they didn't all go to the desert.
Okay, so do you think, like, how badly did the Dust Bowl affect the Depression? Would we have gotten out of the Depression sooner if the Dust Bowl hadn't happened?
I honestly don't know. I'm hesitant to make a lot of theories
Yeah.
about history because there's so many things that we just don't know. I mean, one of the most famous arguments that I've ever heard to the we can't change history thing is the kill baby Hitler thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any time travel argument that I've heard, not that I've seen in fiction or
Yeah.
anything but that people talk about more than go back in time, kill baby
Oh,
Hitler.
yeah, it's our favorite.
But we have no way of knowing whether or not that will make things better or worse. It is entirely possible
Yeah.
that somebody worse than him could have shown up in his wake.
Create a vacuum.
So I want to be clear about something. I am not a fan of Hitler's. He was an unsavory
Really?
dude.
You're not?
To say the nicest thing about him is to say that he was an unsavory dude.
Yeah.
But in my personal opinion, Heinrich Himmler was even more messed up than
Oh, for
Hitler
sure.
was. So now, granted, I don't see in my mind any way that Himmler becomes anybody of significance
Okay.
without Hitler having allowed that to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's entirely possible that some amount of circumstances might have caused Himmler to be
Yeah.
the guy in charge. And I think Himmler was even
Well,
more
yeah.
unsavory, unstable of a guy.
Definitely. So you don't know.
So it's entirely possible that had that not happened, the it would have there would have been an effect, yes, but I honestly seriously doubt that it would have been that serious of one. To my knowledge, the Dust Bowl doesn't really affect the United States' economy so much at that point in time, or at least the agricultural
Yeah.
economy at that time. What it did do was just create the larger amount of unemployed people.
Which would affect the economy.
I'm not saying it
Okay.
doesn't affect the economy.
I'm not arguing.
I think it's not going to affect the agriculture economy too much. In that, I think that we were growing and we had plenty of food.
Really?
So I don't think that was too big of an impact. Yes, that did increase the number of unemployed. Yes, that did increase the number of lands that got abandoned. And I don't know if banks moved in and bought that land or banks foreclosed on the land or what happened. So that does have some effects on the economy. But again, I do not know how significant it was since we were already in the Depression.
Yeah.
So I mentioned at the beginning this came in like 3 shifts.
Yeah.
So 34, I want to say it was 34, 36, and 39 were the dates of the shift.
Okay.
So 34 was, I don't remember the severity of them. So 34 was the shocker. 36 was probably still bad. I'm willing to bet 39 not quite so bad, or at least not quite so effective, because by 39, at least by 39, the U.S. economy was already recovering.
Oh.
So a lot of people say that World War II is what got the U.S. economy to recover, and that is certainly true. World War II kicked the U.S. economy into high gear and was very prosperous economically for the country, but we were already on the pathway to recovery before we got before the war industry started kicking in.
So you're saying war good?
Economically, war can be good. Economically, war is good if you're winning.
Okay, but anyways.
Rephrase. Economically, war is good if you are winning. Yes, because it
Yeah.
means jobs for
Yeah.
people. It means the
Manufacturing
Yes.
and all that. Okay, but when you say we were recovering before the war even
We were
started.
recovering before the war even started. Yes.
Oh, okay. But were we getting much of our agriculture from like other countries at that point? Like today, we get all our fruits and vegetables from like Mexico,
We don't
but
get all of them from Mexico.
well, I know, but a large portion of our foods come from other places.
Well, yeah, we might have talked about this before. Trade is always a good thing. To not trade is a ridiculous thing economic wise. If Mexico can grow vegetables better than we can here, it makes no sense for us to grow bad inferior vegetables here in the idea of saving ourselves some money when we can buy better vegetables from Mexico, especially since there's the trade value goes in. So, okay, Mexico can build better. I'm speaking hypothetically. I have no idea if Mexico can grow better vegetables than us.
They
If
grow
Mexico,
good avocados.
if Mexico can grow better avocados than we can here in the United States, but the United States can build better cars. Again, I'm speaking generally. I have no idea if. Oh, actually, I don't think I've ever heard anything positive about a Mexican car. But again, I
I don't
don't know.
know.
But the United States can build better cars than Mexico. Then it makes sense for the United States to build awesome cars and trade those
Yeah.
awesome cars to Mexico for its awesome vegetables. If we don't do that, then what happens is, yay, America has a lot of cars, but our food sucks.
Yeah.
And Mexico has great food, but their cars suck.
Yeah.
But if we trade, then it's better. So yeah, sometimes it's all a matter of it's an economic staple.
Yeah.
If somebody can do something better for you or create a better product than you, then you find a means of exchange and trade. So this is why trade. This is why peace is always good for the economy.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't use the word always.
Always.
But I am hesitant to think of a time where peace is not good for the economy because it means that people aren't fighting, it means that people are freely exchanging goods back and forth.
Yeah.
And the idea should be that everybody produces what they produce very well and trades that thing that they make better than everybody else for all the things that they don't make as good
Right.
as other people do. The only reason to be self-sufficient, the only reason for a nation to be completely self-sufficient, make all of its own stuff, is if that nation is preparing for war, either a defensive one or an aggressive one.
Okay.
Because you want to make sure that your supply lines aren't cut off. You want to be able to make sure that you are going to provide all of your own stuff. Outside of that, it makes no sense on an economic basis to try to make everything yourself. Because
That
even
makes
if you make
sense.
some stuff awesome, the other stuff that you're going to make is not as good as something somebody else can make.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like how much.
Sorry, going back
Go
to the
ahead.
Dust Bowl then. So I don't know how much of our food the United States was buying
Yeah.
from other countries at the time. But again, nothing that I recall reading has said that the Dust Bowl affected the U.S.'s food market very bad.
See,
All
that's
it
what
did-
interests me. I'm curious about that.
What it majorly did was it taught U.S. farmers a couple of lessons
Yeah.
about how to take care of land better, or taught the U.S. Agricultural Department also how to take care of the land a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it just caused a classic case of the population movement, which leads
Yeah.
to workforce movement.
Right. So now, do you know about, okay, so economy starts to recover, we're in the war, farming practices get better in those areas. Do you know anything about, like, did people migrate back? Or was that like a permanent shift in population? Because those areas of the country aren't very populous.
I have no idea. I'm inclined to say that no, most people did not move back. I mean, I would say surely some people, or at least some people did move back, or some new people did move into the area.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I wouldn't be surprised if nobody that left moved back because
Because California is that awesome.
California probably was pretty awesome. But no, I'm inclined to say that because they wouldn't have had anything to go back to. Odds are any of them that left the area, their lands wouldn't have been usable again for a while. And I'd say more likely than not, I'm willing to bet that most of them that left, they didn't own the land anymore. I'm going to guess that
that
a
would
lot of
be a
that land
problem.
would have been owned by the banks and foreclosed on by the banks. And the banks are going to be looking to get their profits, so they're not going to just let the old people move back in. They're going to sell that land or do whatever the heck they want to with it.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
So, but again, that's a guess. I have not researched extensively the after effects of the Dust Bowl.
Okay. Do you have any other tidbits about the Dust Bowl?
While it is a significant note in U.S.'s history, again, I want to be clear, it was not a cause of the Great Depression. Assuming that I got my years right, and I'm pretty sure I did, you can check that out and you can verify that. Yeah, this happened during the Great Depression. It was not a cause of the Great Depression. Certainly, it did not help the country recover from the Depression at all, unless the migration of workers end up having some effects on the economy that were positive that I'm not familiar with. Like, it's entirely possible that, it's because of all those displaced workers that would have to go to cities, and then that meant there were more workers for city factories or in other areas that could have produced more stuff. But that would be a long and difficult trail of research that I have not done.
Okay. Well, that's really cool. Thank you. Now, since this was a little shorter of an episode, I have some small, fun questions we can add here at the end.
Oh, goody. Fun questions.
They're all fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we recently celebrated our wedding anniversary. We will in the future, but by the time this is published, it will have been in the past.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, that's messing with the history.
So it's like time travel.
Okay.
So in honor of that, I have a couple questions that kind of give a little insight into our relationship.
Oh no.
Okay?
I thought this was going to be a family-friendly show.
It's good for our audience to get to know us better.
Our audience of 10 people.
Yes, our audience of 10 people.
Okay.
Okay, so
Are
first...
these 10 people family?
Oh, I have no idea.
Uh-oh.
So my first
Is this
question...
going to get me in trouble with your mother?
It won't. I mean, but
Promise? Pinky
everything,
swear?
anything you do would get you in trouble with my mother. So I can't promise anything. You
Okay.
could breathe wrong.
Is this going to get me in trouble with your brothers?
No.
Okay.
No, and I must say I love my mother and we tease in our family a lot.
Is this going to get me in trouble with my favorite sister-in-law?
No.
Okay, then I'm good.
You are
All right,
way
then I'm
too
good.
scared of
Then
these.
I'm good.
These are
Then I'm good.
this is nothing. You're way too worked up. Okay, first question. Why are police officers called cops?
All right, so there's two possibilities on this.
Okay.
One is a story that I love because it's hilarious.
He told me this story on our first date.
I did.
Yes,
Okay.
randomly you're like, do you want to know why police officers are called cops? Because you're a nerd and you had to show me up front. Go ahead.
See, I told her this story because I realized that talking to her about Japanese military tactics during World War II wasn't really interesting to her, so I had to switch it up a bit.
Good job.
So, like I said, there's two stories that I'm familiar with for this. One is the one that I think is hilarious and I love. The other is, honestly, the more practical one and is probably the truth.
Oh,
So-
not as fun.
So the first one is that, all right, New York is one of the first cities in United States history that has to create a police force. There have been law enforcement throughout history. There have been marshals, there have been sheriffs, there have been things of that nature.
Yeah.
But New York City is one of the first places in the United States where it is realized that, okay, we need something more than the sheriff and a couple of deputies. So a what we would recognize as a police force comes
Yeah.
into existence. And in order to help citizens recognize these police officers from the normal, average, everyday citizen, they were given badges that were made of copper.
Copper.
Over time, people would refer to these guys as coppers, and this eventually gets shorted to cops. So that is
Great
the
story.
That is the fun story. That is the one that I've always loved. Now, and more practically, there is a word which I believe has Latin roots. I might be wrong about that. Which it's a verb, to cop, which means to catch somebody,
For
to
real?
apprehend somebody, to something of that nature, to catch, to apprehend,
Yeah.
something to that nature. So, so what do police officers do?
They cop.
They cop. They
Yeah.
catch people. They apprehend people. So it is. I'd say more likely that is where the term
That's not
cops
so
and coppers come
fun.
from. A copper is a person who cops.
Okay.
One example to this that is in that I know is kind of goes under the radar but is still in popular media today.
Mm-hmm.
You're a fan of Monty Python, yes?
Love it.
What's your favorite Monty Python movie?
The Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail. Remind me. There's a scene where they're about to burn a witch, right?
Yeah.
And what do they do to prove that she's a witch?
They weigh her against a duck.
And what does she say when the
That's a fair cop.
That's a fair cop.
Oh.
It's a fair catch. They've caught me.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I love that now.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Okay.
Okay. So when we were dating, I think we were engaged. We took a history class together.
Oh yes.
In
that one.
college?
That one of your brothers was in.
Yes, and it was so fun. Why did that professor keep whacking the chalkboard as if there was something written on the chalkboard when
How
there
is
was
that a-
nothing written on the chalkboard?
How is that a history question? That's a picking on the poor man question.
That's true, but it's fun to make fun of history nerds.
All right. So yes, the history teacher that we had in this class. I
great.
do not know what was going on in that guy's mind.
He always had
He-
chalk on the edge of his hand.
If I remember correctly, I don't think we ever saw him write anything on the board. Like nothing.
If he did, it was like a couple dots.
Yeah,
Maybe a line.
I don't have a memory of seeing him write anything on the board. But whenever he's doing his lectures and he's like really getting to one of those points where he wants to pound that point in, he wants you to remember this point, he would hit the chalkboard
Like karate
with
chop it.
with the edge of his hand like he was trying to underline or point out something that he had written there. But there was never anything written there.
It was great. It was awesome. Oh my gosh. Do you do that now that you're a history teacher?
No, I don't think so. I usually point to something that I've written or point to a picture that I have up there or something that
Okay.
I don't think I hit the board when there's nothing there.
Okay.
If I do, nobody's pointed it out to me.
All right, last
And we don't
question.
use chalkboards anymore. We do use dry erase markers, and I do know that I have come home from time to time with dry erase
yeah.
marker on my hand.
Covered in ink. All right, last question. Okay, here's a good one.
Is it a history one, or is this a pick on somebody one?
I'm not picking on anyone.
Okay.
How proud of me were you when I recognized your book about old boats in the Parks and Rec show?
Okay, yes, that was very
It
funny.
was
I was
great.
very happy.
So I think it's the Harvest Festival episode.
Do you need to
in
explain
Parks
to
and
them
Rec.
why that was so cool to you?
Oh, I will.
Okay.
Yes. So Parks and Rec Harvest Festival episode, they're setting up, and Ron is like, Leslie has it all under control. I'm just going to sit here and read a book about old boats. And then he holds up the book so you can see the cover as he's like sitting in a lawn chair. And I was like, wait! And I paused it and I'm like, Christopher has that book. And you don't have that book. You have a book by another author. But
I have
the same
books
author.
by that author.
Yes. And they all have pictures of old boats on the cover. And I was so proud of myself that I recognized that book. How proud of me were you?
I was very proud of you for recognizing that. I was also a bit creeped out because Shirley has been trying to get me to watch, or at that point,
Yeah.
she'd been trying to get me to watch that show forever and a day, and I'd always said, nah, it didn't really sound
It's a
interesting
great
to me.
show.
She kept telling me that Ron and I were so much alike in so many things,
Yeah.
and so then when she shows me this clip that Ron is reading a book by an author that I enjoy, then I'm like, okay, yeah, that's just one more thing to verify that, okay, she's right.
You are
I
Ron
am a little bit like
Swanson.
Ron Swanson. No. What's the actor's name?
Nick Offerman.
Nick Offerman. No, he is Ron Swanson.
Yes.
I have become a fan of his after seeing
He's
that
great.
character and, from that show, and I've loved a couple of other things that I've seen him in.
Yep.
So yes, but yes, definitely, I think Ron and I would totally love to get together and not talk sometime.
That's true. So tell us what's the author? I can't remember his name.
His name is.
You don't know off the top of your head. You have to find it on your book
I want
stand.
to say it's O'Brien.
That sounds right.
Yeah, Patrick O'Brien.
Patrick O'Brien writes books about old boats. Are they good books? Do you recommend them?
I do. Some of you may or may not have already seen a movie based on one of his books. There's a movie that Russell Crowe made quite a while ago called Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. I don't remember if that is based off of one of the books that he wrote, but the characters, those are all the regular characters of his books.
Yeah.
I don't know if every one of his, so the first book I had that you were referring to, that doesn't talk about Captain Aubrey or the Surprise or any of those characters. It was just a book that was just about the boats.
Yeah.
But the other books that I'm familiar with, or at least the ones that I've seen that he's written, are the stories about Jack Aubrey and his crew.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's good books, and if you like the movie, I suggest you read the books.
And you have watched that movie on repeat 1,000,000 times in the last 20 years.
It was a good movie.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
I
I'm just
like to
saying
listen to
I've
movies
seen it
for
1,000,000
background noise
times.
when I'm doing something else.
That's true. It's good background.
I mean, if you want to guarantee that I'm going to buy a movie ticket, have a old timey naval battle in it. I'm going to go see that movie.
True that. All right. Do you have any parting words?
Yeah, there was something that I was going to say. It's like, oh yes, I wanted to warn anybody who's listening to this. If you do decide that you want to read these books, I want to warn you right now. These books are filled with old nautical terms and sailing terms, the parts of the ships, the ropes that you use, the lines that you use, the sails. It can get very, very difficult to have any idea what the heck is going on. I'd say if you're not going to do the research to understand what's going on, don't worry about it. Just trust that the captain knows what he's doing, the crew know what they're doing, and it's going to be a cool thing that they're about to do.
So you don't have to sit there with a dictionary.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. If you liked what you heard, then please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to hear a future episode with more information about today's topic, contact us on Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Married to History Pod.
And please also contact us if you have a silly question idea or if there's something from history that you would love to learn about.
Just be sure to specify in your message if it's silly or serious, because we don't want to treat a genuine quest for knowledge as a joke, nor do we want to tease old college professors for habits that they had to do unless it's cool with them.
That's fair.
You were picking on that guy. What was his name?
I don't even
I
know.
don't remember his name either.
I don't know.
Someday some 20-nothing little kid taking my class is going to be picking on me for a...
It's true.
But granted, I would deserve that, and I'd be cool with it.
That's how it
right.
goes.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Make sure we're still recording. We are still recording.
That is a good thing to do, is to make sure we're still recording, because if we weren't recording, then there wouldn't be anything to record.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, am I supposed to read more? Say
No,
more?
it's my turn because we're done doing that. Okay.
Ah!
I forgot. All right.